Ron, and as we had started, the former Chief Justices have been quite clear and explicit that President Uhuru Kenyatta is contravening the law with his blatant disregard of hiring the last of the 6 judges. On the program tonight, we want to discuss that and Jubilee problems with the law for the longest. Karibu sana. I have Senator Cherargei. Karibu sana. I also have Priscilla Nyokabi.
Thank you.
And joining us via Zoom, Advocate Charles Kanjama. Good to see you.
I'm happy to be here.
Let's start from where we should, and it is where the former Chief Justice left us. Should President Uhuru Kenyatta be impeached?
I think those are the list of our problems at the moment as a country. What the Chief Justice expressed is his personal opinion, but I don't think it is necessary to impeach the president at this point in time. He has less than a year to go. Why should we want him to go? Let him finish and go. That is why Kenyans say Maliza Wende. So from where I sit, I know, of course, unfortunately, President Uhuru Kenyatta has litany of disobedience to court orders. From many court causes. I remember the issue of KMC, the issue of, although it's a pull and pack, the NMS, many other court orders that have been even creating CASS, executive orders. So there are so many things that President Uhuru Kenyatta has gotten wrong. But from where I sit, it is not even politically wise to impeach him at this point in time. Mm-hmm. But I want to believe that the way the country is, I think we shouldn't want to put Kenyans into political mood as at now. The general elections is barely away, but I would have expected President Uhuru Kenyatta. I heard him yesterday saying in State House when he made the leaders from Lower Ukambani or Lower Eastern, saying that he has done more under the handshake. But unfortunately, it is under the handshake that he has disobeyed the law the more.
Is that true? Is that true that this disobedience of court orders first has happened because of the handshake? Priscilla?
No, I don't think it's because of the handshake. There are sort of different reasons why court orders are not obeyed. I don't support the disobedience of court orders.
Yeah.
Straight out, I don't support myself. But on this matter of 34 judges, there is a context around it. Majority of the 34 are actually legal practitioners. And there was a lot of suffering for the legal practitioners who had been named to the bench and then were not appointed. And there was no reason for those ones to suffer over the issues that have been raised on the 6 who are already on the bench. Remember, the 6 are all serving.
Yes.
So you have a group of lawyers have not wronged anyone. So I personally support this decision. Swear those when you have a shida, how a sitter, let the matter go to JSC.
It's been 2 years.
The time has passed, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a question of timing that I agree this decision should have been made, over a year ago.
Yeah.
But then there was also context around the transition between the Chief Justices. Whatever time this decision has come, I now think that the JSC should get seized of the matter of the 6 because also the 6 should not be condemned and heard. So this matter should go back to JSC. The president has already done his part. The 34 are now ready to serve in the land and the environment, the land and environment, and the labor and employment courts. And then these other 6, we then go into a process because constitution is a journey.
The process. This is not the process. If the president had issues before,
yes,
when these people are being interviewed, he should have raised these issues then.
And the issues were raised. The issues were raised. The issues were raised then. The issues have been raised now. The issues are even recorded. He has already given the issues to JSC.
But he's not the
Let
employer.
the JSC be seized of the matter.
No, I think, with all due respect to my sister, is that what my sister is failing to tell the country is that the role of president is salutary. Number 2, Nyokabi is being escapist by failing to disclose that a representative of the president by the name of Attorney General sits in Judicial Service Commission. If the president had issues with those 6 judges, it should have been handled before even the names were being forwarded to the president.
Right.
So the question is, the role of president was so minimalistic because he had a role through JSC and even like Felix Kosgei, the chairperson now, Olive Mugenda, and the AG are normally appointed by the president. So all these people, if they had an issue, we had all the apparatus, the NIS, and secondly and finally, is that now, what will happen to litigants that Justice Odunga, Professor Ngugi appear before them and the rest of it? Means it erodes that confidence of judiciary. And I think the president did not embarrass the six. He embarrassed himself because he has now, as I conclude, my sister says, which is correct, that now the JSC should be taken back, tribunal should be formed, the judges should be investigated, because everybody would really want to know what happened to these six. Still, they are still serving.
Right.
Yes.
Let me go to Charles. Charles, you can provide some light here. This is not the procedure. Can we be clear that this is not the procedure? Is it the procedure that if the president has issues, and as Priscilla says, brought them and they were either considered or not considered, can the president still have a say much later after the JSC recommends the appointment of these judges?
The High Court has already given its determination on the matter. And what the High Court has said is that the role of the president is to appoint the judges, including those that he may think he has an issue. And then after that, he can raise his complaints with the Judicial Service Commission after he appoints. So the High Court's position that they have repeated in two different cases is that the president's role is ceremonial. It is not to pick and choose who is going to appoint. The president, of course, believes that his role is not just ceremonial. He has appealed, but he has never got a stay to stop the operationalization of the interpretation of the High Court. So unless the Court of Appeal agrees with the president, then the position as has been determined by the High Court is that the president should appoint all the 40 judges, including the 6, and then he can raise whatever issue he has with the Judicial Service Commission. The court has also said that the Judicial Service Commission, and I think this is also in the law, has no role after it nominates the judges and forwards them to the president for appointment. It becomes functus officio. So its only additional role would be once the judges are appointed into the new position and if there was a substantive complaint. Let me say something else, James. The commissioners of JSC, including former Commissioner Mercy Deche, who was representing the Law Society of Kenya, have stated on several occasions that during the process for interview and nomination of these 41 judges, they did not receive any substantive feedback from the president, either directly or through the office of the Attorney General, against those judges who the president later raised issues with. In fact, what has been stated is that after the process of nominations was complete, they received a very casual communication, summarized, saying that we have concerns with the following names. And they were asked, please tell us what your concerns are, because intelligence can be rumors. It can be based on evidence, it can be based on rumor mongering, and the Judicial Service Commission has to assess that quality of information. And no information was provided beyond just saying we have an issue with the following.
Right.
So I think the president failed the constitutional test in this particular instance.
All right. Charles, Priscilla, you wanted to respond to that?
Yes, I just want to respond to that. Because it is indeed true that the president is required to appoint judges by Article 166.
Yeah.
But that same article requires each judge of a superior court to be appointed from among persons who have a high moral character, integrity, and impartiality. So their moral character and integrity has been called to question. Priscilla, the same constitution says it. He cannot appoint. So let me say this. No. Because what we are saying is this. We don't want to cast aspersions on judges. Reports have been done on those judges. They are required to have a high moral character and integrity. There must be a process now.
Are you saying they don't? Are you saying they don't have?
No, what we are saying, questions have been raised on the 6. The way to clear those questions is a process through JSC. A constitution is a living document. You cannot be stuck on it. Remember, this is not the first time we are in this question of half judges appointed and another half not appointed. It arose in the Kibaki administration.
That was the dispensation. It's the
it arose the same. President Moi Kibaki found himself in the same problem. That high moral character and integrity has been questioned. So as a president, can you in good faith appoint them and then set up a tribunal to remove them? Why don't we clear their moral character and integrity? Let's find, you see, these processes are processes under the JSC Act. It is an act of parliament that gives these processes. We have now come to this question. What happens with the law? The law is a living document. We must live by this law. High moral character and integrity, the Constitution requires. JSC has given us people who do not, in the estimation of the president, have a high moral character and integrity.
I hear you, Priscilla.
Let those questions be investigated by JSC.
I hear you, Priscilla.
Yeah.
But
Can I add something?
yes, please.
You know, this one comes at the backdrop, and I want to call my sister not to selectively interpret the Constitution. When you look at constraining the Constitution,
Yes.
the first part of Article 166 is very clear. Shall appoint upon the recommendation of JSC, and the interpretation has been made in High Court.
Yes.
So if there was issues of high moral correct, and we have agreed here that the president is already representative of the Attorney General, there are two people who represent the public.
Yeah.
He should have used that one. Secondly, that is why the interpretation of Article 166 as constraining the Constitution, as she has said correctly, that the law is living, should be interpreted in a whole manner, not just that part of high moral integrity. Number two, this comes at the backdrop that when President Uhuru Kenyatta's presidential petition was nullified, he said he will be revisiting judiciary. So the worry among Kenyans and people who would have expected judiciary to be allowed to build the confidence is that when he said revisiting judiciary, is this part of the wider strategy of using such instances to revisit judiciary? So in as much as the president had concerns of integrity, the president, the neater way, and I hope Nyokapi sometimes advises the president, the neater way should have been follow the Constitution.
Right.
Ensure if he had an issue before the recommendation of GSC, he should have dealt. But now you have cast aspersion generally on the judges that serving. Because we know Justice, for example, Dunga has been on the receiving end where there's been allegation that he has always been issuing orders against the government. Professor, and you know, number two, there was the time of BBI, and she's among the proponents of BBI. The same Joel Ngugi and Odunga sat in the bench that say that the BBI process had failed the legal test.
Yeah.
So the question is, could it be this is a water strategy? Were they being fought because of opposing the BBI? Were they being fought because the president is revisiting judiciary? Because he has said, by the way, in some contexts when he was in Kisumu, the president personally said he doesn't care about court orders. So could it be the president is on the rock?
Senator, I want
with
you to,
all due respect.
With all due respect,
yes.
Lady, gentlemen, I want you to hang on to this point because I'm going to go for a short break. When you come back, we delve this deeper and then you head to the BBI.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You're watching With All Due Respect, hashtag WADR. Yes, the conversation is just starting. We just got started here. Stay with us.
Like every mom, you want the best for your child.
Happy birthday.
You make sure she knows the joy of sharing happy moments with family. And when everything comes together, you above all others will share the taste of success with her. Blue Band tastes like mama's love.
Place your order and enjoy free delivery. Reach us on 0723 999981 or 0724 114411 or the details on your screen. Boma Mabati. Mabati ya kila boma.
Kwa majina naitwa Edel Otieno, tumia offer ya tunukiwa. Unapata kuna customers wengine wananitumia reverse call. Naweza mpigia simu juu niko na airtime kama boss.
Wakenya wengi wanaendelea kuzawadika kila siku kwa kutumia tunukiwa. Piga *444# ili utunukiwe leo.
Weka Collabo na Shell Shinda Fuso FI is back and bigger. Weka Collabo na Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Africa's Oshopata convenience shop. To enter the draw, dial *384*200#, enter the code from your voucher and follow the prompts. Terms and conditions apply.
This week on Lit 360.
As always, our guarantee is fire content and we just keep it coming.
Yeah, we love so careless, no consequences. What's up, everybody? I am the only Rosa, and catch me on Wednesday at 10 p.m. on Lit 360.
Hapa duniani siogopi vitu vingi, kisiri siri naogopa kuwa cheesy. I'll take a risk on the ship if we're sinking. I admit when with you I'm not thinking.
If you make a commitment of 900k in any of their value-added projects, you get rewarded with a cool smartphone, bro!
Call us on 0790 300 300.
In a world of fake news, Kenyans need the truth. When Kenya's foreign debt goes through the roof. When our athletes cover our nation with glory on the global stage. When they steal from Kenyans in a pandemic. When Kenyans cannot breathe due to the high cost of living. You deserve the truth. The Daily Nation brings you the truth. We are bold for you, full of courage for you. We are resilient for you, telling Kenya's stories without fear or favor, because you deserve the truth. Daily Nation, the truth.
Welcome back. You're watching With All Due Respect. We have been trying to find out what's happening in the selection of the 6 remaining judges, and we just got into it. And I want us to go and find solutions now. Let me start with you, Senator. This question that the president still has a chance and opportunity to say, person X have intelligence on them and they're not good for this country for whatever reason. At what point does it end? And when do we say, look, as the head of state, you've done all you could have done and the institutions have spoken?
You know, my brother, during the swearing in of President Uhuru Kenyatta, he said to uphold, protect the Constitution of Kenya. The neater way is that the president is not a stranger in Judicial Service Commission, as we have agreed, all of us, and even the determination by the High Court has agreed that the president already has representatives. So I would have expected the president through the Attorney General's office and the public representative to petition the JSC at that point in time, so that if their names, and I agree, any person who sits in a public office, not even as a judge, even chairman of Nyumba Kumi, should be a person of high moral integrity, should be a person of Chapter 6 in leadership and integrity. But the neater way for the president should have been to use his Attorney General's office, prevail upon the Judicial Service Commission to drop the 6 names if they had integrity issues. But now the problem is that it is no longer neat. It is now messy. It is with a lot of casualties, because now I've told you there was a case of revisiting judiciary. There was also an option of that they rule against government in BBI. There was an allegation that they have been issuing orders against the government. So all these issues, even we no longer now see the issue of moral integrity. But I think the president, either, there are two options that the president has. Either to appoint the 6, and I'm happy Martha Koome finally has found her spine. Although some maendeleo ya wanawake mandarins wanted to reduce this issue to gender, I know my sister will agree with me that we shouldn't reduce these things about gender. And I'm disappointed with maendeleo ya wanawake. At least Martha Koome has insisted that let us appoint the 6 judges. Or the exit that will be messy and noisy will be to form a tribunal to investigate the 6. So that Kenyans, you know, Atleticans are very interested, Kenyans are very interested and intelligent. They will go lose a case against that judge that the president has accused of having integrity. They will say this judge maybe has corrupted the way, that is why I didn't get a fair outcome. So at the end, there are only 2 options that the president has. And I hope the president by today evening, and we will send humbly my sister, my beloved sister, to president to fire his advisors, because they are always messing him up. From even that issue, I remember finally, I remember when we were in Senate, because I have seen our topic also involve Parliament. We raised the legality and constitutionality of Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Then Professor Kithure Kindiki was the then Deputy Speaker, before all of us were being de-whipped, were being called Tanga Tanga. The ruling of the Speaker, Professor Kithure Kindiki, then was that the way NMS functions were being transferred was illegal. The courts went ahead and found similar in the outcome. So it shows that there is a problem somewhere, that the president needs to fire his advisors. I don't know what is happening, but I can tell you from where we sit, my final thought on this, so that I can allow my colleagues to add in, is that the president risks prosecution after leaving office. Because all these court orders he will be charged with contempt to court when he becomes an ordinary mwananchi like everybody else after the time.
Yes. Priscilla, who advises the president?
The Attorney General is the one given the power by law and by the Constitution to advise the President on matters of law.
Yeah.
And that is why the President picks the Attorney General, who operates similar to Cabinet secretaries, but has a role. I mean, that's our Constitution. In fact, one of the things about the BBI was to also make him the Minister for Justice, because now we don't have a Minister for Justice. So it is indeed true that the Attorney General has that role, but there are also other legal advisors. What actually happens is beyond... it's not just the legal advice that the president receives. You have to remember that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is a new constitutional dispensation. And democracies don't mature, it's not instant maturity. We are maturing. Even this conversation we are having is part of our democratic maturity. It's part of our process of maturing, for institutions to mature, JSC to show its strength. We are all in part of that journey. And the president equally is in that journey. So there is, when these questions arise, it either means that there is a lacuna in law, there is something that has got to be tightened. Like if you look at the Constitution, the removal of a judge may be initiated only by JSC. Only JSC can again initiate the removal of Justice Odunga or Justice Joel Ngugi and the other 6. But what has also happened, like for example in Parliament now, we have a stage we call pre-publication scrutiny. It wasn't always there in the law, but now you can scrutinize a bill before it becomes a bill. So I imagine even in this case, the JSC can scrutinize the information available, whether it does then meet the criteria for removal or not. And I think that should be done by JSC. So that in this process that we are in, the 6 need a process around which then that information that intelligence and other people have is then looked at. The only body that can do that is JSC. We should even now stop discussing what the president can do. Let's now discuss what JSC can do so that we get out of this conundrum. In the meantime, we are politically maturing. Don't worry too much about him, and we are maturing. Even the judges know. This is our maturation. Because also, if you look at the court orders, for example, and this is very serious, for court orders to be obeyed, and even our judgments are under discussion. The law is not in vain. Court orders are not in vain. It is not in the happiness of the judiciary to give court orders that are also not obeyed. You must have the JTI, the Judiciary Training Institute. We must all introspect. Why are we giving court orders that are not being obeyed? It must also mean there's something wrong with those court orders.
No, Priscilla, but hang on. How can we?
It either must mean those orders are not amenable to implementation. Or the orders are in vain. We must also, that conversation we must also have. It can also mean that judges have gone into a province that is not their province. And I personally have been very keen, even when I was in jail, that we must have judicial restraint.
Give me an example give me an example of a court that should not be obeyed, for instance.
No, NMS, for example. Nairobi City has problems from here to the moon. Health not working, roads not working, anything not working. You are in the executive. You have been elected president. You must offer the people of Nairobi a solution. You offer the people of Nairobi a solution in NMS that restores health. Health is now working. Water is working. They are busy working on garbage collection. You and I, all of us grew up in a Nairobi that was working. Now, surely the court must allow NMS to work. With all due respect. We must make it according to the law, but the answer cannot be to stop NMS. The answer, and let me tell you, this is actually going to come. What courts can do is audit, but courts are not allowed to make a decision around some of these matters. But the executive Priscilla, must be allowed to do its work.
Nairobi voters elected someone in office.
They are now in trouble. Their health is not working.
Now, the issue, I wouldn't want to go that route. One is that, and I want to urge my sister again, Article 259 is very clear. When you look under Article 168, it does not, and I know where she's going. In the BBI, they had proposed judiciary ombudsman. I know that is where she's going. It can be initiated, the removal of the judge can be initiated by JSC or a person petition the JSC. But because she has passed already the BBI, she has already amended the constitution. Number two, the practicality and the importance of a court order is so important that we can't underestimate. What was wrong for the president to follow the law? in transfer of functions. You know very well that in this city, they had elected Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. The Senate did impeach him. There was already a sworn deputy governor. As we have said, the people of Nairobi elected somebody to the governor's office, be it Anne Kananu or Sonko was.
There was a representative.
There was a representative. So why should we allow NMS to come to this town and be putting only cabros? The red cabros are over the
that's
city.
also not right.
So
Okay.
that
You
is
must
the
add
point.
health to the cabros.
No,
Health and
the
cabros.
health. In fact, the issue of health, and it is good my brother Oluga is now in charge of medical services.
And water.
But so far, there are no, we were told the hospitals are supposed to be launched by the president. We are yet to see those hospitals. So at the moment, no, we don't want to discuss, but I'm just pointing out that the practical, for example, my sister here, maybe you have borrowed loan. All of us take loan. Somebody takes the bank wants to auction your property. Now you have a court order. Then the court order, now since there is disobedience, somebody comes on to sell your house, and then you say court order is just a piece of paper. Then where are we heading as a country? I agree with that. In maturing our democracy, with all due respect,
yes,
we must ensure that the rule of law becomes the cornerstone of maturity of our democracy.
And
that is Article 10 on national values and principles.
And we can't pick and choose which court orders to obey.
Correct.
Isn't that true? Isn't that the cornerstone of why we go to courts? We can't just choose which one to obey and which one not to obey.
Exactly. Everyone would like to obey court orders that agree with their views and to disobey court orders that disagree with their views. And because I practice in the courts virtually every day, I would say that many times when your client loses a case, they start doubting the judicial system. And we always advise clients that when you go to court, you can win, you can lose. In fact, one of the mantras that we practitioners use is, there is no case that is so strong that you cannot lose it, or so weak that you cannot win it. So sometimes you find a decision has gone unexpectedly in your favor or against you. So what is your recourse? We know, we have repeated these times without number. You appeal or seek to set aside a court decision that you don't agree with. And that's why we have hierarchy of courts. But you cannot pick and choose what decisions to obey. In fact, that is the definition of what we call impunity. And when impunity is driven by state officers, high state officers, then it is very unfortunate because the rule of law gradually disintegrates. It is the same government that expects its citizens to pay taxes, to obey the various laws that are being passed. If the people in charge of government disobey court orders, why should the rest of the citizens pay taxes, obey the authority, the directions they're receiving from the president or from cabinet? So I think it is in their interest, and we've elected them to enforce the law. And you enforce the law, first of all, by obeying it yourself.
Yeah. Let's switch gears.
We can't fight that. It's just that we also have to have this conversation about the provinces. Just how far is the court's province? How far is the province for
But you agree.
legislators? I agree on court orders.
Yes.
But I also would want us to have another conversation on provinces, so that the courts also, like he has been a legislator, when courts are supposed to not come in when the surgeons are working. When the surgeons are working, otherwise we are killing the patient. Now what we are having, legislature is trying to resolve a matter, executive is trying to resolve a matter, then the judiciary gets into the matter. We can't have a country like that. There must be sufficient judicial restraint. Judiciary is a place of last resort, not your place of first resort. The elected leaders must try to deal with the problems of Kenya. If there are any questions, they go to parliament. Judiciary must be a court of last resort. But what we now have, like now look at the BBI, for example. We are all trying to secure the election for next year. But we are all, the surgeons, the doctors, the nurses. Now we want to kill the patient. The patient will die.
So that we go to the BBI.
My sister wants to blame the mortician when the patient is dead on the table. Here the surgeons have killed the patient. The principle of doctrine of separation of powers is very clear. The work of the court is to interpret the law. The work of parliament is to legislate. The work of executive is to implement. We agree, and I agree with her on one thing, that judiciary is not immune from constructive criticism. we must criticize their decisions. There are things that judiciary do that we must not agree with. When they overreach other organs like parliament, like executive. But if they are within their domain of what the interpretation of the law is, then we agree with judiciary. But also I want to warn judiciary, not to warn, to request that when Kenyans also criticize their work, it should not, they are also taxpayers' money. Why is it that everybody is comfortable and politicians are being bashed, but when you want to question judiciary, they just go ballistic? But even executive also, we criticize them daily. Bunge is being criticized, parliament is criticized. So in as much as we are saying the independence of judiciary and competence is important, they should also be ready for audit. The audit of Wananchi, to ask them, you are using money, we allocate them money.
Are you saying that doesn't happen, Senator?
But of course, we have seen cases where judiciary doesn't take in good faith when people criticize or question how they operate. But of course, we are not in the business of enriching or overreaching in their work. We want them to work to interpret the law. We want Bunge to make the law. We want the executive to implement. But we will not be interested to see executive interpreting the law. That is my only worry.
Let me ask.
I don't want the judiciary to stop the executive from doing the work that the executive should
do. But the executive, under Article 10, in the principles of national values and good governance, must have one thing called rule of law. If President Uhuru Kenyatta's government...
Hang on, aren't we breeding anarchy by just saying that there is things that we can respect and things that we can't?
That is my worry.
I'm not on that line myself. Really, court orders must be respected, court orders must be challenged. Wakili spoke correctly.
Correct.
But then we must have this conversation as a country around the demarcations, because what we are seeing, part of the reason, and I'm not speaking for the executive, one day you will have the Attorney General here. Yes. But part of the reason why...
Please, if you see him, tell him with all due respect.
Yes. And sweat this out.
Yes.
Part of the reason why some of these orders, as far as I know, part of the reason why some of the orders are difficult is actually also because of the overreach. And I also speak as somebody with tea farmers, for example, in Nyeri. We are a tea, and we are also from tea zones. Look at the court of orders we have in the tea sector.
Yes.
So now that also is the judiciary not allowing the executive to do the work that the executive should do. You have a minister trying to do tea reforms. The minister can't do tea reforms because court orders have been issued. We have a problem with injunctions, and I have also been a litigator, and I have loved injunctions. But injunctions are also not biscuits that when you wake up in the morning you get. Injunctions must have, very serious tests. Like you can't injunct a road. Parliament passes money for a road. We all agree a road should be made. You can't just issue an injunction that easily. There must be a lot of tests. So this question is also about interdependence of the organs. It's also about interdependence of organs. Remember, the court knows from the beginning that they cannot enforce their orders. Enforcement of court orders is actually by executive. Even police orders are by the executive.
Yes.
So there must be interdependence. There must be provinces. Then now we can talk about respecting court orders.
Interdependence, I think I agree with her on the aspect of interdependence. But that interdependence should not make one arm of government to be subservient of the other. For example, when you hosted, I don't know whether it was in the when you hosted the cabinet secretary, Raphael Tuju, it was scary to listen to him by saying, after you finish giving that ruling, remember you are being escorted by a police officer. So those are failed traits that we wouldn't want. They are equal. The three arms of government are equal and they are not subservient, but they are also interdependent. But when we were launching, then when I was the chair jailer before Kieleweke's and we were being kicked out of Jubilee, is that I remember, yes, when we went to strategic meeting and President Uhuru, when we were launching the 5-year strategic plan, and one of the discussions we were trying to have with the judiciary and executive is to create a forum of interdependence. Because some of these things are neater when you do more backroom negotiations. Because there is no need also to be ballistic. You're having the president shouting at the judiciary. You're having the chief justice shouting at judiciary. So I think also issue of interdependence, the arms of government should see how they can interdepend and sort out some of these issues before coming to the fore.
Hang on to this thought. I want Charles to have the absolute final word on this, because when I come back, I want to go straight to the BBI question. Sometimes, Charles, help me out, our politicians make us feel that we're dealing with issues for the first time, right? Like judiciary came into this country yesterday, and the president also came yesterday, and then they have this coalition path. Help us, please, to settle this.
Yeah, I think the issue of institutional committee is one that even the Supreme Court has talked about, that yes, the three arms of government are interdependent. But personally, I think we need to draw the line. and say that the judiciary is not in the business of entering into boardroom deals with other arms of government. If there is a live dispute that is before the court, the judge is not meant to. And in fact, if the judge was to try to engage in boardroom negotiations, that would amount to violation of the judicial oath, which is in the 3rd schedule of the Constitution. What the judge is meant to do when there is a live dispute before the judge is to decide impartially, without any influence, either political or otherwise, and to decide a live dispute that is before them. So I think the independence of the judiciary is not just financial independence, it's even independence from the other arms and organs of government and state officers. And judges should be left to do their job. But I also agree that under the Constitution, the chapter on the judiciary, chapter 10, the judiciary has an additional role. They are meant to be both independent and accountable. And I think what Honorable Priscilla is trying to say is that the judiciary needs to be aware and alive to the context and the reality in which they make their decisions. And that is genuine criticism of the judiciary that they need to take into account, because sometimes injunctions, orders of stay, and so on are issued that you actually wonder how could such an order be issued. Even the process of recruitment of the Chief Justice was injuncted by the High Court before the Court of Appeal reversed that decision. We might not be having a new Chief Justice right now. But having said that, every individual judge is entitled to make a mistake so long as they do it in good faith. That is why we have appellate courts to correct mistakes that have been made in good faith.
All right.
And so even as we ask judges to be more accountable, we must strengthen them with independence. And the last thing I would like to say, James, is this. It is a shame that the budget that was read a few days ago gives the judiciary only 17 billion shillings, the same amount they were allocated 6 years ago, when the national revenue was less than 2.5 trillion. The national revenue has grown by about 40%, and the budget of the judiciary has not grown. So these are the kind of things that are hampering the ability of the judiciary to effectively deliver on its mandate.
Very well said.
With all due respect, I think Kanjama is misinterpreting what we are saying. For example, when judiciary was appearing before Jaila National Assembly to present their budget estimates, were they cutting backroom deals? No. What we are saying is that they work based on the work related. Number two, I agree with them on the issue of, because we really fought, we discussed about the budget of judiciary. The issue, I agree that we need operationalization of judiciary fund, so that we give judiciary autonomy. And number three, I agree with all due respect that judiciary should be given more money. Because how do you give NMS around 42 billion, yet you are giving judiciary 17 billion? We have many law courts, and you know some of the donors have pulled out. We have so many in the I think during Nyokabi's time they had passed that every county must have a high court. As we talk, some like mine in Kapsabet is yet to be finished. I know several counties that do not have a high court. So those are challenges that we would want to speak for judiciary, and I really support that judiciary should be well funded so that the dispensation of justice and access to justice becomes easier for every Kenyan.
Right. I want to close this down, and we like being truthful in this program.
Yes.
You said that NMS has not built any hospital. That's not true. It has built 4 hospitals, and I can actually tell you the locations.
But they were selling us 100.
Kiamaiko, Ushirika, and Soweto Kayole. So yes,
but
so they've built 4 hospitals.
How many?
They've built 4 hospitals.
Yes.
So they've not
completed the others.
So then I'm honest, because they told
with all due respect, please. We're taking a short break.
I wish I would also come with my facts.
We're taking a short break. When we come back, it's all BBI.
Welcome to a different kind of world. Here, the old rules do not apply. It isn't about petrol or coal or gas. It's about energy. It's about life. All I need is my style to make these streets look good. All I need is a mic to unite millions, an obstacle to break through it, my heart to bring hope, my fire to open eyes. It is my time. All I need is who I am. Hennessy. Never stop, never settle.
Weka Collabo na Shell, Shinda Fuso FI is back and bigger. Every time you visit Shell and Weka a collabo of Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Afrigas or Shopata convenience stores, you stand a chance to drive off with one of 5 border borders up for grabs. What's more, one lucky winner will drive off with a brand new Mitsubishi L200 double cab in 4 weeks and stand a chance to win the grand prize of a Fuso FI with 2-year warranty and 5.5 kilometers per liter fuel efficiency, plus thousands of instant prizes, 10 daily winners of 5k vouchers, 400 daily winners of 100 bob airtime. Weka Collabo na Shell, Shinda Fuso FI. Weka Collabo na Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Afrigas or Shopata convenience shop. To enter the draw, dial *384*200 hash, enter the code from your voucher and follow the prompts. Terms and conditions apply.
Unaonaje hiyo gift? Tu hutufanya tuwe wa Kenya milele.
Kenya milele.
With the Stay Soft refill, saving money is as easy as snip, pour, mix with water and shake. Stay Soft refill. It's 2 liters of Stay Soft for up to 30% less.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
All right, welcome back. Having tried to settle the question on the judges, I think we've made, we've moved a little bit on that question. Let's go to the elephant in the room, BBI, right? This problem that we're stuck with right now, and I mean, let me start with Charles, because the BBI is such an interesting place that we really have to have this referendum, if you're to believe, political pundits, by the end of the year, or just before the next elections. Charles, let me start with you.
It's so interesting, James, that BBI has been rushed with what I call indecent haste towards the finish line, with hardly any time that is required under the current constitution, for example, for review of constituency boundaries. The constitution says that constituency boundaries must be reviewed and completed by IEBC at least 12 months before the next election. BBI was proposing that this will be done even after the 12-month period or window has already closed. It was with such indecent haste. The emergency was amazing, and you got the impression that the promoters of BBI felt, and they still feel, that without BBI the country cannot be stable. But the impression I have is that once that emergency of 2022 is over, if BBI will not have passed because of the court orders, we will be more sober. We will approach the question with greater sobriety in determining which of those proposals in BBI are for the good of this country, and we consider how we can pass them, which of those proposals might be rotten, and then we discard them. In fact, one of the things the High Court decision said is that the idea of packaging together 74 different amendments so that you have poison pills there, you have sweeteners there, and Kenyans are told take it or leave it as a package is not in the spirit of the Constitution. So my impression is that if the indecent haste, which is just to meet a transient passing political interest in the 2022 election, if that haste is eliminated, we will be more sober in selecting the good of BBI and leaving out the bad and the ugly.
All right. I think in studio I have one of the promoters of BBI and
Proponents.
yes, the proponents.
Yeah, promoters.
Please tell us why this indecent haste as well.
No, that's actually a wrong term by council.
What's
with all due respect, that's not a good term. Because what has happened is the handshake was March 2018. And the handshake had reason. Remember, the country had just come out of a repeat presidential election. And the people's president had sworn himself in January of 2018. So there was reason for the handshake. And what you see in the handshake now is even part of our history. This was also 2007, 2008. This was the Grand Coalition. And that is what the Constitution Amendment Bill is seeking to do. After the handshake, there was the task force on the BBI, then there was a steering committee on the BBI. So there has been no haste, really, as far as this process is concerned. In the collection of views and the 9-point agenda, there were clear issues that need to be identified, isolated, and cured. And part of the cure must then involve a constitutional amendment bill. In fact, BBI is nothing but a stability project for this country. And you know, we must stabilize our politics for our economy to be able to stabilize. We are suffering so much economic turbulence. So we must have political settlement so that then we stop interfering with the electoral, with the economy. So now, the proposals, I am personally very happy about the gender ones. And he had already said about the Maendeleo and the women. We women are very happy because 10 years, we have not had the 2/3 gender rule implemented. It is only implemented now in the Constitutional Amendment Bill. Again, there can be no haste in a process in which we've been following for the last 10 years. It's only now in the Constitutional Amendment Bill that the 2/3 is done properly. We have a Senate that is 50-50, and we have full 2/3 in the National Assembly and full 2/3 in the county assemblies. And we also have Article 43, because women have also been very keen on Article 43 rights and the resources around it. Now we have a War Development Fund to do health, water, education, and all the things we've been fighting about. In the meantime, we have a promise of a much stronger and much more stable government at the national level, giving 35% of resources to the counties. We see nothing wrong with all of that process. But then the answer with the judges is this. They must allow Kenyans to make a decision on that matter, because that matter is a bill. That matter will not even go in until it goes through the Kenyans. So the only thing now with the appeal is let the bill go to the Kenyans, let the Kenyans make a decision, so that those of us who are proponents, we can then go and convince Kenyans that there is no harm in these provisions. They are nothing but implementing the 2010 Constitution. And most of them are actually matters we have been canvassing. I have been on this show myself on 2/3 many times. Matters that have been on the table, matters which should have been resolved, were not resolved, are now being resolved.
Priscilla, with all due respect, no one has a problem with 2/3 and all these other sweeteners, if you like.
They're not sweeteners.
Yes, no.
They are constitutional provisions.
Don't
fall into the trap of openness.
No. It wasn't part of the handshake.
It is part of the handshake. Part of the handshake is inclusion. Inclusion of all regions, inclusion of all tribes, inclusion of all people, including women, youth, and persons with disability. Inclusion.
So you're saying tonight, your point is that President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga had a handshake because of the gender 2/3.
No, they had a handshake because of inclusion matters and because of stability. And part of that stability is now what the bill is seeking to give. The 9 points are clear. There is a point on ethnic antagonism. There is a point on competition between the communities. There is a point on inclusion. There is shared prosperity. The resources that the country has, how do we make sure that every Kenyan is sharing in those resources, including the hustlers? The hustlers are also in the BBI. Everybody is in the BBI.
Yes. You're also in the BBI?
No. My position has been made clear on how I voted when it came to the Senate. But one interesting thing, when we were voting in Parliament, both in National Assembly and the Senate, the proponents of BBI agreed that the BBI bill had a lot of problems. And in fact, the Popular Initiative Amendment, the Parliamentary Initiative, you know, what the courts did was to bring sanity. Because, for example, they were arguing that, let me use public participation. Under the Article 10 and public participation, even in Parliament, where my sister used to serve, and we hope to see her soon than later back to Parliament, is that the public participation is an important and integral part.
Yeah.
You remember MCAs were being threatened. They were being bribed. They were offered car grants. I'm not saying MCAs do not deserve car grants, but they were told if you pass the BBI, when they went to and took their demands to the president told them you'll get car grants. After when you pass the BBI, you remember even in the courts have ruled, I think maybe Wakili will assist me, was it in Tana River, where the courts ruled that there was no public participation. The MCAs just passed the PBI amendment, Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. So the process in itself, in as much as there could be issues and there that, by the way, the amendment of Constitution is not like Bible or Quran that you can amend. You can amend any time. But the point is the process. And if the president was being advised properly and Raila Odinga, because we have seen him, he's insisting, saying handshake between me and Raila. So we always assume it is, handshake is for two people. It's not even about stability of the economy. What this country lacks, James, and it is very important for every Kenyan to note, is an electoral justice. Where if I lose to my sister, I shake her hand and go home because I know the process has been in the integrity. And you know, when NASA were on the streets in this Nairobi, they used to have a very nice song called Electoral Justice, because when you go to a fair competition, the results are transmitted very well. The elections are voted without intimidation and violence and bribery. Then at that point, when you lose, you know, I have lost. But now these people are diverting our attention by saying if we create 5 seats at the top, the president, the deputy president, the prime minister, the 2 premiers, that if you create for the big 5, let me assume the big tribes, what will happen to the 43rd Makonde? What will happen to the Turkana? And there was a catch, by the way, and I know this one will favor my sister here, that when you are electing a prime minister in the National Assembly, it is by the majority. When it came to the division of 70 constituencies, of course, it is she is carrying the document here. You know which region had the majority of the constituency. So when you hear people saying a Turkana will be a prime minister, I always get worried. So the point we are trying to do is that we are only taking care of the greed of politicians. And it is sad for this country. Finally, you are now creating a double-decker parliament. Because now you'll be having a number of parliamentarians. In fact, I disagreed with this gender issue for long. You know, the women, the female senators, now they'll be male senators, female senators. We were arguing in Senate. And I was telling them, you did very well because under the affirmative fund, you used to have money. Where you would go somewhere in Nyeri, some small village, buy a women a tent. Now you come to the Senate where powers had been whittled. You know, we don't have powers to vet even ambassadors or vet even Mzee Nyumba Kumi. We don't have those powers. Now you want to come to the Senate where we are just overseeing 35%, which you don't have direct control. Because hours after we pass the CARA, County Allocation Revenue Act, then after we pass the cash disbursement schedule, the governors take over there. Yet women were now leaving the affirmative fund where they could go to a function, go to a youth group, people living with disability, and tell them, hustlers, as she has said, get this shoe shining machine, get the tents. Now that was better because women leaders could change their life literally. But now they wanted to transfer them to the Senate where we would only a talk shop. You know, Senate is a talk shop where you just talk. In fact, the National Assembly is much more. And finally, because I just wanted to say this, women now are being removed to the Senate. Yeah. Yet that BBI amendment bill, and she can confirm, cabinet ministers, including the prime minister, who are coming from National Assembly. Does it mean women will not get an opportunity of becoming a premier or deputy premier or becoming a cabinet minister? Because now you have taken all the women to the Senate to become 50-50. I thought that was unfair to women unless, and you know, by the way, smart, that with all due respect, there is no country in the world that has fully achieved the issue of gender. It is always progressive. It is not a one-stop. We can continue to improve the issue of gender. We have seen President Museveni, he has tried, he has appointed women in senior positions, and I can assure you in the Hustler Nation that is coming, women, including her, will have a prominent position in running of this government.
We will have to audit you on this one. But anyway, you need to respond to this.
Yes, I need to respond to this, especially on the Affirmative Action Fund. Yes. Because that fund is created under the Public Finance Management Act. So that fund exists for the groups. And it wouldn't have to end just because the women have gone to the Senate.
Right.
In any case, it wasn't the women going to the Senate. The women senators that we have, And Senator knows that. They don't fully vote. Like, for example, they don't vote on Kara.
Yes.
And you know, if you don't vote on the county revenue allocation fund, you then don't have a strong bargaining power, as it were. Like we women have felt, if women had the vote, we would vote more money for water. This country just needs a lot of water. Nairobi itself needs a lot of water. But now we don't vote in that Senate. So it's true we might lose the Affirmative Action Fund, but given the opportunity to vote for health and water and food, that is actually a much better bargain. But in the National Assembly, we have 360 constituencies in the National Assembly. And it is fair representation. It is not what he's saying about one region getting seats. It is one member of parliament for 132,000 Kenyans. And this is within African standards. One MP for 132,000 Kenyans, so that you can give better service. Now we have an MP like Kasarani, who's doing 600,000, 500,000 people. That is not right. Even Kiambaa, where the conversation is, the population is very high. Thika, Ruiru, all of those places. Even Athi River here in Machakos. Yes, and you know, population must follow the economy. Yes. You can't stop the population from going where the economy is. Correct. But you can ensure that the services reach the people where they are. So one MP for 132,000. Those 360, every party must give us a list that is 2/3 compliant. And I'm happy that the UDA is promising they will not have a battle over that. It has been a big battle for women to get party tickets for them to run. So women run when they get party tickets. So they run in the party, they get elected. Correct. But we still have the top up. If the women are not elected for, you know, different Kenyan reasons, culture and all of that, then we have a top up. So we have women in Senate, and we have women in the National Assembly who are then available to be ministers and, you know, and deputy ministers and all of those positions. This BBI is a good project. Forget the rumors. Read the content. Read the bill.
In fact, in fact,
read the content.
This, in fact, I didn't finish my submissions. And finally, you have seen they have introduced somebody called Judiciary Ombudsman.
Yes.
Where they want to now control by amending the provisions of Judicial Service Commission, by wanting to introduce somebody called Judiciary Ombudsman, who is like a working dog for the executive within the corridors of judiciary. For example, if the Ombudsman were aware that BBI judges wanted to rule against the government, they would have summoned a judge and tell him, from next week, you don't rule against us, we'll start a process of removing you from office. And that is why we are saying, and I agree with that on the issue of interdependence, but we should not allow the executive to overreach. Number 3, there was an aspect, and I want to agree with you, in the topic
I have to go to Charles to get on the
of course, yes, yes, you will have the last bite on the cherry. Okay. With all due respect, when you read this constitution, even the eroding of powers of National Police Service Commission, tell me, if you are transferring all powers, I think Article 245 was there about, I'll confirm shortly, is that if you are transferring the powers, I think Article 245, I'm right, if you are transferring all the powers to the Inspector General of Police, and we know what happens when you have one individual making decisions on behalf of police service. Now you are making, in short, you are making National Police Service Commission to be moribund. Yet now you are telling now, that is, I'm reading this, the article, but it's an amendment.
Did that really happen actually when we were doing the first security laws? That
I agree. There was, you know, at least I don't receive a flag because I was done Parliament. She was the one who passed the security laws then, and also amended the attacks of Al-Shabaab. And you know, there was also the amended that the Inspector General of Police shall be appointed the president, which I always found it wise because of how the modus operandi of security sector is. But my point is, why are we trying to remove an oversight body? You know, even IPOA, Independent Policing Oversight Board, has assisted, and she agrees with me, where security agents have become rogue, have killed Kenyans, and IPOA have really assisted many Kenyans to get justice. Right. So why are we destroying institutions? If my sister here, Nyogapi, says that, and it is good, your governor is fasting the first term. I thought he's having the second term. No, the point is, if BBI was honest in building the institutions, when you see how they want to claw back, including even the devolution, it shocks you, because as we talk today, you people have covered that county governments are likely to shut down in 24th July because the national government, the national treasury, has violated Article 219 by not releasing 102 billion, even we are in the new financial year. Yet the same government wants to tell us they can dispense of 35%, yet at least 15%. So in fact, finally in the health sector, you remember when the COVID-19 pandemic, Ministry of Health was procuring supplies on behalf of county governments and telling them, pick your supplies and the pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical from KEMSA to your counties. So when you look at this amendment, and I think this is just a politically expedient process, it's like rocking a chair, and I'm happy I did see director of ODM, Philip Etale, sometimes writing on Facebook, because I thought it's verified because I saw the blue one, he said, bye-bye BBI. Okay. I think we have more problems.
It was bye-bye BB. It was
Let me go to Charles. Charles,
bye-bye BB.
There are some offending things in the BBI, as you correctly said, but specifically this judicial ombudsman. Why do we need an ombudsman in the judiciary?
You know, one of the problems of BBI, James, to be honest, is that some of the proposals that found their way into that bill, no one seems to know where they came from. We don't know who proposed this judiciary ombudsman that is a nominee of the president, that sits in the Judicial Service Commission and therefore has a role in voting, and therefore damages even the principle of fair administrative action and right to fair hearing, because the prosecutor against the judges in JSC is a member of the same JSC with a right to vote in other matters. So we don't know where it came from. And of course we know that the potential of the ombudsman to damage the independence and integrity of the judiciary is substantial. But I think we know something else, James, which is the big picture that the judges in the High Court explained in their judgment. We are not going to discuss the High Court judgment, but I just wanted to mention, which is the pattern or the characteristic of Kenyans to continuously keep mutilating their constitutional documents. This is what happened with the Independence Constitution. And it happened so much that the Constitution was treated as no different from any other law. It was treated almost like a piece of paper. You could change it at any time to deal with, as I call it, temporary passing political problems. You just change the Constitution. When Jomo Kenyatta voted Paul Ngei in Parliament, he amended the Constitution to allow someone who has an election offense to continue serving as an MP. When he did not want an extra party, in one afternoon, they recommended an amendment to the Constitution and they passed it to make Kenya a one-party state. These are the kind of things that were happening with our old Constitution. And I think the problem of BBI, fundamentally, because BBI has several good provisions and also some which are poison pills, I repeat. But the fundamental problem is that the entire approach was an approach of trying to solve temporary political problems and mutilating the Constitution, not realizing that the Constitution is long-term. One of the things that the church leaders said, because they went to State House, they addressed the president and the public in several press briefings, even other religious leaders, the Muslims and so on, said the same thing. They told the principals, this was a year ago, they told them, why the rush? Why don't we pause and get the views of Kenyans together? You've produced this constitutional amendment bill. Other Kenyans are raising concerns. Why the rush? But the rush was because there is a timetable for elections of 2022. And that precisely is the issue. This constitution has been drafted to meet a political challenge, while the constitution is meant to be meeting a legal and a governance challenge. So the amendment is inspired by partly short-term interests, and that is a problem.
Short-term interests?
No. The one that I agree is that constitutions are political maps, to start with. This entire constitution is a political compromise. I mean, the entire constitution of Kenya.
With all due respect, you can't just pick one part of his argument.
No, not just one part. But let's say this. It is indeed true that a constitution is a political compromise.
Sure.
The particular 2010 constitution was a political compromise between the PNU and the ODM. The same ODM. Now, with the BBI, is a compromise of Jubilee and ODM and all the partners. But what happens with constitution-making processes, and that is why I agree about some parts being good and some parts not being good, it is a consultation process. So you don't quite get everything that you wanted to get. Like on this case of judiciary ombudsman, the judiciary will get independence, and the judiciary has independence. But remember, the judiciary must be accountable. The judiciary has been refusing to allow the ombudsman. No, remember, let me tell you this. What happens with the politicians and what happens with executive and legislature, you replenish that leadership every 5 years. Every 5 years, you have a chance to vet. This senator is going for vetting by the people of Nandi. If they find him fit, they allow him to continue. If they don't find you fit, they don't allow. In judiciary, you don't have that opportunity. Judges are with us until 70 years. So what happens is that there must be a tool of accountability. The ombudsman is nothing but a tool of accountability. And according to international standards, we are not the only country to have a judiciary ombudsman. It is according to international standards. And that is why in the amendments, and just to show that BBI was a listening process, the ombudsman you see here now in the bill is not the ombudsman before Bomas. Remember, these questions came up in Bomas. In Bomas, this ombudsman was not the one that you see. Now this ombudsman is under JSC, because the power of the judiciary is in JSC. But the ombudsman must be able to pick up accountability questions. And let me tell you, we had a vetting mechanism in 2010 Constitution for all of the judges. We came to this Constitution with a vetting mechanism of all the judges. It is not to say that after 2010 judges are not committing any crimes. It is not to say that after 2010 judges don't need continuous, check. And that is what the ombudsman does, according to international standards, completely within the JSC, not appointed by the president, as he says, appointed through the same process that commissioners come under, vetted by Senate. So it is, it is the normal process. That's how IBC commissioners are going to come. That is how the IG comes. That is how the Auditor General comes. It is the same process that the Constitution has given. So the ombudsman comes under the same process. But let me tell you, we all know, all of us are lawyers. All of us are lawyers. We know about accountability issues in our judiciary. And they are there. You can go to the judiciary and have missing files. And it is not missing. Hiyo file kupatikana ati ujipange ati cheza kama wewe James Smart cheza kama wewe judgment cheza kama wewe. We can't have judges like that ati cheza kama wewe. We all know, we even have now clients who tell hiyo file haitapatikana. How can a client know file won't patikana? Those matters must be shared with the ombudsman, must be investigated, must be checked. Accountability. And every person must be accountable. Every officer under this Constitution must be accountable. Judiciary,
Agreed.
knowledge.
But what's the haste? Why do we need to do it now?
I think there's a point about the election of 2022. That's true. There is that point. Because what has happened is that after two elections, the 2013 election and the 2017 election, there are realities around implementing the 2010 Constitution. And those realities must then be aligned before as we seek to do transitions. And African countries, we haven't been too good with transitions. And that is the fear also with our own country. That for us to transit peacefully from the 4th president to the 5th president, there's a sense in which you need some reforms that allow that transition to happen and that expand the space and expand the inclusion. That is a very, very key point. If we don't do it now, we will have to do it after the election. The next president will have a handshake.
I agree with the Catholic Bishops' Episcopal Conference. They say that there is no hurry. I agree with you. Because this is a legal challenge and governance challenge, as my brother Kanjama has said. And I know he's a default Catholic, if I'm not wrong. So what I'm just saying, with all due respect, is that I agree, but there is every wrong in terms. You remember in even the creation of 70 constituencies, in itself, everybody agreed that it was unconstitutional. It was illegal. Because Article 89, 88, 89, the role of IEBC is very clear. That there is a process of demarcation. There are so many factors under Article 89.4 that there are regional issues, cultural, population, boundary, before you award a constituency. So the fact that the promoters and the supporters and the proponents, like my sister, went somewhere in an hotel under Chai and Mandazi, they decided we need 70 constituencies.
No.
Without any justification.
One MP, 132,000. There was a rationale.
Yes.
Which was also, that was the number in 2010.
Then they picked They pick just a list and say Nandi will get 2.
We followed the census.
3.
We followed the census.
Siaya will get 1.
Census.
Somewhere will so the issue of but you are a lawyer and you are familiar with Article 89.4,
Sure.
where you don't only use population. There are, even as we talk now, there are protected constituencies, even in your county, I think so, if I'm not wrong. So there are so many factors that you do. So the creation of the 70 in itself was illegal and unconstitutional, because the role of IBC, where do you put IBC? Even Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and I want to disagree with her respectively, with all due respect, it was very clear when Kenya National Bureau of Statistics appeared before the JLAC of National Assembly and the Senate. They say, for example, Kitui deserved to get a constituency. Yet they didn't get it then. Because if you are using population census to justify allocation of a constituency, then why did Kitui? They agreed that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics came, the IBC in fact agreed that they have not seen, they don't have those numbers. So at the end of the day, there was a blatant, and you know, by the way, this argument has been argued by legal scholars, that you can push an unconstitutional amendment until the constitution is amended. But that is a legal philosophy that will be argued for the longest time possible. But my point is simple. The BBI process and the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, with due respect, was only being allowed to fix temporary, and let me import respectfully the words of my brother Kanjama, that it was to fix temporary political solutions. Because you have seen these people, when the courts stopped reggae, and the reggae was being stopped, you realize one Kenya Alliance got confused